In this video, you're going to learn about why people aren't productive and what you can do to make sure that you are not one of them. How many times do you think you've seen a video on productivity or actually getting things done? I know personally I've seen a lot, and half the time I don't even actually consume whatever it is I'm watching or reading or listening to or whatever kind of content it would be. It's its own little niche. People will spend hours and hours making videos about productivity and then consuming videos about productivity and talking about productivity, but all of this talking and thinking about productivity actually decreases the overall productivity of the individual. Productivity doesn't even sound like a real word anymore. I just said it so many times in that sentence. In a way, people will actually procrastinate doing whatever it is that they need to do because they are tricking themselves into thinking that they're learning how to make themselves do that thing. In other words, they're kind of trying to motivate themselves instead of actually do the thing. It's kind of like learning how to drive a car. You don't learn by reading a book. Well, I guess you do kind of learn by reading a book, but in order to actually retain the information and apply it, you have to go drive a car. You can't just spend all day reading a book about driving a car. You're never going to learn how to do it that way. Same thing works for productivity. You're not going to be able to suddenly be more productive by sitting around thinking about it all day or learning about the science behind productivity all day. Now, don't get me wrong, learning how it works and understanding how it works is helpful, but you only really need to do that 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 or 4 if you take a minute to retain things. Which begs the question, how many times have you come across a video on productivity and had it actually change your day-to-day life or your routine? Most of the time people consume these things and then that's that. And half the time they don't even actually retain whatever it is they learned because they just consume something else instead. Now personally, I have wasted a lot of time because of this problem. I'll spend so much time thinking about how to do something and thinking about how to apply it, then I'm not actually doing the thing or actually applying it. A good example for me is that recently I had one of my first sales calls and I jumped on the call and I was all confident and also super caffeinated, which is important. And as soon as I started talking, I started stuttering and spluttering words out of my mouth. It was just terrible. Now the dude was really nice about it, don't get me wrong, but I totally failed that sales call, which it is what it is. I learned more from that moment though than I did from any video or book that I read. For example, I learned that a script is probably going to be helpful and it might be wise to have that for me to rely on in case I forget where I'm at in my spiel or speech or whatever you want to call it. When I failed in that sales call though, it made something very clear to me, and it's not that people lack the motivation to do something, it's that people lack the discipline to do something. That's why people go to videos and read books and learn as much as they can about something so that way they can avoid actually doing it and they can hide behind the guys that they're learning. Another example for me is that I've wanted to start making content since I was like 11 or 12 and realized that that's something that can be a career path, but I spent 7 or 8 years before I actually started doing that. Now here I am and I'm learning so much more than I have in those 7 or 8 years of procrastination, which is ultimately what that is. To be fair, all of this is normal for anybody to procrastinate and try to learn instead of actually apply what it is that they're learning, and it's because we are apex predators. Take a look at any other apex predator and recognize their habits and how they, I guess in a way, schedule their day-to-day lives. Although that's a very human way of looking at it, I think for this example it's going to be useful. Most of their day is actually spent resting. It's only a very small amount of time that they're actively moving and trying to achieve something, and that goal that they're trying to achieve is getting food. They don't move around or really do anything that's unnecessary, and if we look at humans, which are at the very top of the food chain, that makes sense. We are the ultimate apex predators, so it makes sense for us to not want to move or really do anything if we're not actively pursuing something that's going to bring us food, water, or shelter. Personally, when I don't have a project that I'm actively working on and actively need to get done, I am extremely lazy. I'll spend 6, 7, 8 hours in front of a phone or just scrolling through YouTube, and I'm not really achieving anything. Now here I am, I started a business and I always have something to work on, which honestly I think is really good for me, but that's a conversation for another time. But the conclusion that I came to throughout all of these failures and all of this procrastination is that there's no productivity muscle, so to speak. Or maybe there is, but you can only work it by actively exercising that productivity muscle. You're not going to be more productive by journaling or waking up at 4 in the morning or thinking about things you're grateful for, because that's not being productive, that's thinking about being productive. Now don't get me wrong, those steps are important and you do need to do some of those things at times in order to realign yourself with what you think is going to help you be productive. For example, I recently realized that if I don't wake up before 6 a.m. and start getting to work before 6 a.m., then I will be so much lazier and I will procrastinate so much more throughout the day. So for me, that's what being productive looks like. That's how I exercise that muscle, and that's with heavy air quotes, because even then you're not really exercising the productivity muscle, you're just convincing yourself that you are. For other people, it might look like journaling or thinking about things you're grateful for. And I know I just use those examples, but those are the ones that are thrown out the most and the things that people waste the most time on. I've tried journaling, I've tried thinking about things that I'm grateful for, and although they're helpful, ultimately they're not what led to me being productive. What led to me being productive is what I needed, and what I needed was to wake up really, really early. So next time you're thinking about productivity or next time you're procrastinating, don't look up how to be productive, because you're going to end up procrastinating more. You're going to be running circles inside your mind because you're just trying to find solutions that you already know but you're trying to avoid. Instead, look at what you need to do in order for you to be truly productive in your own mind, because ultimately that's what you need to do. The journaling and the waking up early and the thinking about things you're grateful for are all useful, but they're not all going to lead to you being the best version of yourself. Maybe one or two of them will, but ultimately you decide which ones those are. Usually these things are just things that help you get the momentum going. If I wake up early, I know that I have enough momentum to continue moving because nobody distracts me in the beginning of my day. Ultimately, it's not adding anything to your schedule that makes you be more productive. It's taking things away from your schedule that make you be less productive. You aren't adding solutions, you're just removing problems. If you like what you saw, then you should go below the video and press all the buttons you see here. And you should not press this button because that would suck, and YouTube really likes when you press all of these ones. So press these buttons. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan. I recently started a media business, and the purpose of this channel is so that 20 years down the line, I can look back and go, hey, I called it. I knew that was gonna be cool, and now I have proof. But for now, that's it, and I will see you later, and goodbye.